California. Just the name sparks something. Dreams, gold, movies, technology. The edge of America where anything seems possible. The Golden State. 39 million people. The fifth largest economy on Earth. But how did this place become this? How did empty wilderness become the world's dream factory? This is the story of California. It has native peoples who lived here for 15,000 years. Spanish missions that changed everything. Mexican rancheros riding vast estates. Gold, the word that emptied cities and filled California with dreamers from around the world. Railroads that connected a continent. An earthquake that destroyed a city. Hollywood, where movies were born and stars were made. The dream factory that shaped the world's imagination. Hippies in San Francisco, surfers in Malibu, dreamers arriving every single day. And then Silicon Valley, a garage revolution that put a computer in every pocket and changed humanity forever. Wildfires, earthquakes, droughts. California fights nature itself to survive, and somehow always does. This is California, the place where America comes to reinvent itself. Let's go back to the very beginning. 15,000 years ago, maybe more, the first humans walked into what we now call California. They came from the north, following the animals, following the seasons. They found paradise, rivers full of salmon, forests full of deer, oak trees dropping acorns by the millions. The land provided everything they needed. Over thousands of years, they became hundreds of different tribes. The Chumash by the sea, the Miwok in the valleys, the Mojave in the desert. Each perfectly adapted to their home. The Chumash were master boat builders. They crafted canoes called tamals from wooden planks, stitched together and sealed with tar. They paddled out to the Channel Islands and traded up and down the coast. Acorns were California gold, the original gold. Tribes harvested millions of pounds each fall. They ground them into flour and made a porridge that sustained entire nations. They made some of the most beautiful baskets in the world, woven so tightly they could hold water. So intricate they're still displayed in museums today as masterpieces. California was the most densely populated region north of Mexico. Over 300,000 people speaking more than 100 different languages. More linguistic diversity than all of Europe. They rarely built empires or waged great wars. The land was so abundant, they didn't need to. They traded, they celebrated, they lived in balance with their world. Shell beads became money. Clamshell discs strung together, traded for hundreds of miles. The first California currency, thousands of years before the dollar. The Mojave crossed the harshest deserts, connecting California to the great Southwest trading networks. The Yurok built villages along the misty Klamath River in the north. For thousands of years, this world continued. Seasons turned. Generations passed. California tribes knew every plant, every animal, every stream. It was their home. They didn't know it, but their world was about to change forever. Across the ocean, in a place called Spain, ships were being built. Men were making plans. And in 1542, the first European ship appeared on the California horizon, a Portuguese explorer sailing for Spain. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo had arrived. Cabrillo sailed up the coast, mapping, naming, claiming land that wasn't his to claim. He called it beautiful. He had no idea what he'd started. The Spanish sailed away and didn't return for 200 years. But the clock was ticking. The old California, the California that had existed for 15,000 years, was running out of time. When the Spanish finally returned, they came with crosses and chains. They came to save souls, even if it meant destroying a way of life that had thrived for millennia. 1769, more than 200 years after Cabrillo first saw California, Spain finally came back. This time they came to stay. Spain was worried. Russia was moving down from Alaska. England was exploring the Pacific. Spain needed to claim California before someone else did. Their plan was simple: build missions, convert the natives to Christianity, turn them into Spanish citizens. California would become Spanish through religion. Father Junipero Serra led the mission. He was a priest from Spain with a big dream: save souls and build an empire for God and King. The first mission was built in San Diego, then more and more. 21 missions total, stretching from San Diego to San Francisco. Each one a day's walk apart. The missions looked beautiful. White adobe walls, red tile roofs, bell towers reaching toward heaven, gardens and fountains. But inside, the truth was darker. Native people were brought to the missions. Some came by choice, curious about the strange new people. But once inside, they could not leave. They became prisoners. They had to give up everything: their language, their religion, their names. They were given Spanish names and forced to pray to a new god they didn't understand. They worked from sunrise to sunset, making bricks, farming fields, building walls. If they refused or tried to escape, they were whipped. But the worst killer wasn't the whip. It was disease. Smallpox, measles, flu. Sicknesses the native people had never seen before. Their bodies had no defense. Before the Spanish came, 300,000 native people lived in California. Within 50 years, more than half were dead. Entire tribes disappeared forever. Some fought back. In 1781, the Yuma people attacked Spanish settlers crossing the Colorado River. They killed the soldiers and the priests. But it wasn't enough. Spain sent more soldiers, built more forts called presidios: San Diego, Monterrey, San Francisco. The military protected the missions and kept the native people under control. Father Serra died in 1784. He built 9 missions and baptized thousands. Some call him a saint. Others call him something very different. Meanwhile, soldiers and settlers started families. Spanish men married native women. Their children were called mestizos, mixed blood. A new California people was being born. Big cattle ranches called ranchos spread across the land. Cowboys called vaqueros rode horses and herded thousands of cattle. This was the birth of California ranch culture. Cattle hide and tallow became California's first big business. Ships from Boston came to buy leather for shoes and fat for candles. California was joining the world economy. But far away in Spain, problems were growing. Napoleon invaded. The king was removed. Spain's empire began falling apart. Mexico saw a chance for freedom. In 1821, Mexico won independence from Spain. California was no longer Spanish. Now it belonged to Mexico. A new flag flew over the missions. Spanish California was over. It had lasted 50 years. The missions had changed everything and destroyed so much. Now Mexican California would begin, and it would be very different. Mexican California was free and wild. Mexico City was 2,000 miles away. Nobody was really in charge. The rancheros did whatever they wanted. Mexico closed the missions and freed the native workers. The mission lands were divided into huge ranchos. Some families got 50,000 acres or more. Life was good for the Californios. Big parties called fiestas lasted for days. Rodeos showed off the best riders. Guitars played under the stars. But change was coming from the east. Americans were moving west. Hunters, traders, settlers. They looked at California and saw opportunity. Some Americans married into California families and became Mexican citizens. They learned Spanish, became Catholic, and fit right in. For a while. But most Americans didn't want to become Mexican. They wanted California to become American. In Washington, politicians talked about taking it. In 1846, war broke out between America and Mexico. And in California, American settlers made their move. They called it the Bear Flag Revolt. The California Republic lasted less than a month. Then the U.S. Navy arrived. The American flag went up. California now belonged to the United States. Some Californios fought back. The Battle of San Pascual was bloody, but Mexico was losing the war everywhere. California's fate was sealed. In 1848, the war ended. Mexico signed California over to America. The Californios were now Americans, whether they liked it or not. 9 days before that treaty was signed, something happened that would change everything. A carpenter named James Marshall was building a sawmill. He looked down into the water, and he saw something shining. Gold, real gold, just sitting in the river. In that moment, quiet California died. The craziest chapter in American history was about to begin. January 1848, James Marshall picked up that gold nugget. He tried to keep it secret. That lasted about 5 minutes. Word spread like fire. First the workers, then the nearby towns, then San Francisco. A newspaper man named Sam Brannan ran through the streets holding a bottle of gold dust. San Francisco emptied overnight, shops closed, ships were abandoned in the harbor, soldiers left their posts. Everyone ran to the hills to find gold. President Polk announced the discovery to the world. He held up real California gold, and the whole planet went crazy. 1849. 300,000 people rushed to California, from New York, from Europe, from China, from Chile, from everywhere. They were called the 49ers. Getting there was a nightmare. Some sailed around South America, 6 months on rough seas. Many died before they even arrived. Others walked across America, 2,000 miles through deserts, mountains, and native lands. Wagons broke, people starved, but they kept coming. The goldfields were chaos. Thousands of men digging, panning, fighting for every inch of riverbed. Tent cities popped up overnight. No laws, no rules. The early miners got lucky. Gold was just lying in the rivers. You could pick it up with your hands. Some men found thousands of dollars in a single day. But most weren't so lucky. The easy gold ran out fast. Men worked for months and found nothing. Many went broke. Some died alone in the mountains. The real money was in selling things to miners. Pickaxes, boots, food, whiskey. One man sold eggs for $1 each. That's $20 today. Levi Strauss sold tough pants to miners. He made them with rivets so they wouldn't rip. Those pants became Levi's jeans. Still selling today. San Francisco exploded. In 2 years, it went from 800 people to 30,000. Buildings went up so fast they fell down. Fires burned the city 6 times. Chinese miners came by the thousands. They worked hard. They found gold others missed, and Americans hated them for it. California passed racist laws. Foreign miners had to pay special taxes. Chinese couldn't testify in court. Mobs attacked anyone who looked different. Native Californians suffered the worst. Miners invaded their lands, killed their game, poisoned their rivers, then hunted them for sport. It was genocide. Before the gold rush, 150,000 native people lived in California. 20 years later, only 30,000 were left. The rest were murdered or died of disease. The Californios lost everything too. American courts didn't recognize their land grants. Lawyers took their ranchos as payment. In one generation, they went from rich to poor. In 1850, California became a state, the 31st star on the American flag. It went from empty territory to statehood faster than anywhere in history. By 1855, the easy gold was gone. Big companies took over with machines. The lone miner with his pan became a worker with a paycheck. The gold rush changed everything. It built cities overnight. It created millionaires and destroyed lives. It made California the most important place in the American West. California had gold, but it was cut off from the rest of America by 2,000 miles of wilderness. Someone needed to connect it. The railroad was coming. California was rich, but it was alone. Getting there took months. Letters took weeks. America needed a railroad to connect east and west. 4 businessmen in Sacramento saw opportunity. They called themselves the Big Four: Leland Stanford, Collis Huntington, Mark Hopkins, Charles Crocker. They would build the railroad and become insanely rich. The job was impossible. They had to build tracks over the Sierra Nevada mountains. Solid granite, 10,000 feet high, in freezing winters. They needed workers, thousands of them. White workers quit when the job got hard. So the railroad hired Chinese immigrants, 12,000 of them. The Chinese workers did the most dangerous jobs. They hung from cliffs in baskets, drilling holes for explosives. One wrong move meant death. Hundreds died. Explosions, avalanches, freezing winters. The railroad was built on their bodies. Most of their names were never recorded. They carved 15 tunnels through solid rock. The longest took 2 years. Workers dug from both sides, meeting perfectly in the middle. May 10th, 1869. The tracks from east and west finally met at Promontory Point, Utah. They drove a golden spike to connect them. America was one country now. The trip from New York to California went from 6 months to 6 days. Suddenly, California was close to everywhere. People and goods flooded in. The Big Four became the richest men in California. They built mansions on San Francisco's Nob Hill. They owned politicians. They controlled the state. Regular people hated them. The railroad charged whatever it wanted. Farmers had to pay or go broke. The Big Four were called the octopus. Their arms were everywhere. But the railroad also brought something else. Tourists, sunshine seekers, health seekers. People came to California and fell in love. A new boom was starting. California was growing fast. San Francisco was one of the biggest cities in America. Nothing could stop it now, or so everyone thought, until the earth began to shake. April 18th, 1906, 5:12 in the morning. San Francisco was sleeping. Then the ground exploded. The earthquake lasted less than a minute, but that minute destroyed everything. Buildings fell like toys. Streets cracked open. The whole city was shaking apart. But the earthquake was just the beginning. Gas lines broke. Fires started everywhere. And the water mains were destroyed. There was nothing to fight the flames. The fire burned for 3 days. It ate block after block. 28,000 buildings destroyed. The heart of San Francisco turned to ash. 3,000 people died. Half the city was homeless. 200,000 people with nowhere to go. They camped in parks and on beaches. The world thought San Francisco was finished. But San Franciscans had other plans. Before the ashes cooled, they started rebuilding. Money poured in from around the world. Everyone wanted to help rebuild the city. In just 3 years, most of San Francisco was back, bigger and stronger than before. Los Angeles watched San Francisco burn and saw opportunity. While San Francisco rebuilt, Los Angeles grew. The competition between the two cities had begun. Los Angeles had a problem, though. It was a desert, no water. So they stole it. They built a giant pipe and took water from a valley 200 miles away. The Owens Valley dried up and died. But Los Angeles boomed. That stolen water made the desert bloom. LA would soon become the biggest city in California. California was rebuilding, growing, booming. And then something new arrived. Something that would change the world. Movie cameras. Filmmakers came from New York. They wanted sunshine for filming. They wanted to escape patents back east. They found a little neighborhood called Hollywood. San Francisco rose from the ashes. Los Angeles stole its water and grew. And now Hollywood was about to create something brand new. The Dream Factory was opening. 1910. Hollywood was just orange groves and dirt roads. A quiet little town. That was about to change forever. The first filmmakers built studios in old barns. They made short films, westerns, comedies. The movies were silent, but people loved them. Charlie Chaplin became the first superstar. His little tramp character made people laugh and cry. Everyone in the world knew his face. The studios grew huge. Paramount, Warner Brothers, MGM, Universal. They became factories, making dreams on an assembly line. 1927. Movies learned to talk. The jazz singer changed everything. Silent film stars lost their jobs overnight. New stars were born. The golden age began. Glamour everywhere. Movie palaces. Red carpets. Stars lived like kings and queens. Hollywood was the most magical place on earth. People came from everywhere wanting to be stars. Most failed. They waited tables and parked cars. Only a few made it, but everyone kept trying. Hollywood shaped how the world saw America. Cowboys, gangsters, romance, adventure. Whatever Hollywood showed, the world believed. The studios controlled everything. They owned the stars. Actors signed contracts. The studio chose their movies, their image, even who they dated. The Oscars began in 1929, a small dinner party. Now it's the biggest night in entertainment. California invented the award show. World War II came. Hollywood made war films, propaganda, morale boosters. Stars joined the military. Movies helped win the war. After the war, something new arrived. Television. Suddenly people could watch shows at home. Hollywood was scared. Was this the end? Hollywood fought back. Bigger screens, color films, spectacles you couldn't see on a small TV. Movies became events again. Hollywood survived. Hollywood made California famous. It sold sunshine and dreams. Millions wanted to move here. And they did. California was about to transform again. The 60s were coming. December 7th, 1941. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. America went to war, and California became the center of it all. California built the weapons, ships in Richmond, planes in Los Angeles, tanks in San Diego. The state became one giant factory for war. But California did something terrible too. Japanese Americans were locked up, over 100,000 people, guilty of nothing but their race. Families lost everything. The war ended in 1945. Soldiers came home. They wanted houses, families, the American dream. California was ready to sell it to them. Freeways connected everything. Californians fell in love with cars, drive-in movies, drive-in restaurants. You could live your whole life in a car. Disneyland opened in 1955, a theme park like nothing before. Walt Disney built a perfect fantasy world. California was now the happiest place on earth, but not everyone was happy. Black Americans faced racism everywhere. Good jobs were closed to them. Good neighborhoods too. Change was needed. The 60s arrived. Young people questioned everything: war, racism, materialism. They wanted a different world, and San Francisco became their capital. 1967, the summer of love. 100,000 young people came to San Francisco. They wanted peace, love, a new way of living. The music was incredible. The Grateful Dead, Jefferson Airplane, Janis Joplin. California bands changed rock and roll forever. But there was anger too. Vietnam War protests filled the streets. Students at Berkeley demanded change. Police and protesters clashed. Cesar Chavez fought for farm workers, Mexican Americans who picked California's food but lived in poverty. He organized boycotts, and he won. The 70s brought problems. Smog choked Los Angeles. Traffic jammed the freeways. The California dream had a dark side, but something new was growing. In garages and basements, young people were building strange machines, computers. California was about to change the world again. The 60s changed California. It became more open, more diverse, more creative. And now those garage inventors were about to create something that would change everything. Silicon Valley was waking up. Silicon Valley got its name from silicon chips, tiny pieces of metal that could think. A valley south of San Francisco became the center of a revolution. 1976. Two guys named Steve built a computer in a garage. Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. They called it Apple. It would become the biggest company on earth. The idea was crazy. A computer for regular people. Not giant machines for big companies. Small computers that anyone could use at home. More companies followed. Intel made the chips. Oracle made the software. Hewlett-Packard had started in a garage too. Silicon Valley was exploding. Then came the internet. Computers could talk to each other. Suddenly the whole world was connected, and California controlled the connection. Google started in a garage in 1998. Two Stanford students wanted to organize the internet. Now you can't imagine life without it. Facebook, YouTube, Netflix, Twitter, Instagram, all born in California. The state that made movies now made the whole internet. 2007. Steve Jobs stood on stage. He pulled out a small rectangle, the iPhone. It was a phone, a camera, a computer, and the internet, all in your pocket. Smartphones changed everything. How we talk, how we work, how we shop, how we date. California put a supercomputer in every pocket on Earth. Tech made California richer than ever, but also more unequal. Billionaires next to homeless camps. $1 million houses where teachers can't afford to live. Silicon Valley changed how humans live, for better and worse. California once again transformed the world, and it's still transforming. The future is being built right now. California today, 40 million people, the most diverse place in America. But wildfires burn hotter every year. Whole towns destroyed. Climate change is real. Drought dries the rivers. Water wars continue. Same fights as 100 years ago. Housing costs are insane. Teachers and nurses can't afford to live here. Homelessness is everywhere. The richest state has people sleeping on streets. But Californians keep fighting. Electric cars, solar panels, leading on climate. People still come, chasing the same dream as 1849. Gold rush, Hollywood, hippies, Silicon Valley. California keeps reinventing itself. What's next? Nobody knows. California has always been about the future. That's California. 15,000 years of dreams and disasters. The Golden State. There's nowhere else like it.